Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Steve, and I'm here with my co-host Sterl,
Hello.
and we are the 8-bit generation, aka the 8BG. So today we're going to be discussing, some things concerning the PlayStation Classic, and then we'll delve a little bit into Reggie Fils-Aimé's quote about, or his allegations about there possibly
Allegations.
allegations, possibility.
Allegations.
Sorry, not allegations, but the possibility of not having a Nintendo 64 Classic. So, since we're gonna, talk about the PlayStation first, let's talk about that. And
Allegations has to do with legal matters, right? Like, it doesn't just mean.
I used the wrong word on that moment.
I'm just letting you know.
No, thank you for. I realized that when I said the word, I'm like, you know what? That sounds racist.
I know what you kind of were meaning with it, but I'm just letting you know. Proper use of that word is definitely not there. Okay. So are we doing what we've been playing?
We don't have to do that today because I think, it hasn't been so long since the last one. So.
Oh, but I had something to talk about.
All right, so go ahead.
Should I? I don't know. You don't sound like you want to talk about it.
I give you permission. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. So, me, I always play weird, sometimes obscure RPG games. I don't know if this is obscure, but, like last year, Square Enix released, Romancing Saga 2 on iPhones. And turns out they released it everywhere. It's on Steam, it's on, PS4, PS Vita, Switch, it's everywhere. So,
the turn-based strategy PS2 game,
no,
like 307 again.
No, this is part of Square's like Saga series, and it's kind of obscure. They first had people might know them as the Final Fantasy Legends games on Game Boy, but they're called Saga in Japan. But anyway, it's really weird because out of all the weird kind of Super Nintendo unreleased RPGs that kind of you think Square might bring over or whatever, this one is strange. It's not the best, but it's kind of, I like it because it's very different. It's not the usual get your party together and save the world kind of thing. It's more of you have to defeat these like evil heroes from the past, and you're just you're like a emperor, and basically whether you die in battle or you complete certain scenarios, you pass on your abilities to the next generation. So you're always changing your cast all the time, which is kind of cool. The game's very open-ended. You just kind of explore. And it's kind of cool from being like this game came out in 1993. So to have this kind of open-ended RPG style, which is some Saga series is kind of known for, but it's kind of cool to see it early on. So I'm just playing through that. It's a bit, it can be difficult at times, and sometimes and I'll tell you, the port is very wonky. It might feel better on a controller, but the phone, it looks like they just took the Steam version and just threw it on the phone without worrying about, the controls make no sense. But, it's just, it is what it is. So yeah, been playing that. It's not cheap. It was like $15, but I don't mind. So.
Oh, $15.
Yeah, I know, for a cell phone game. For a 1993 cell phone game.
Well, you said it's from Square.
It's from Square, so they always charge for their full price games.
They started charging full price a couple of years ago, right?
Well, not full price, but they charge much more than others. For example, I think Final Fantasy 9 on iPhones is $21. I think it's worth it, because Final Fantasy 9 is great, and to have that entire game on your phone, and it plays well actually on the phone. So to be able to play that game anywhere at any time, I think is actually great. It's one of the few games I think I wouldn't pay I think 7 is $15, and other games are like $12. I pretty much own every Final Fantasy game on the phone except for Final Fantasy 7. So, yeah. So that's what I've been playing. So on to the main shebang.
All right, the main shebang. Well, before we go to the main shebang, I guess I want to kind of talk about what I was playing a little bit because now, you got me.
Please don't tell me it's Fist of the North Star.
All right, so on to our next. it is Fist of the North Star.
No, we talked about that. No more.
Wait, hold on. Let me see. Did I play anything else?
You didn't play anything else.
All right, so I did not play anything else. I was still playing Fist of the North Star. But
yeah.
All right, so pretty much as we all know, or maybe some of us don't know, Sony announced PlayStation Classic lineup. Following the footsteps of Nintendo's successful product. So
yeah, everybody's doing it.
Everybody was doing it. Well, now they released the full lineup of the games. Initially, they released Final Fantasy 7, the good stuff, Final Fantasy 7, Metal Gear, or whatever.
They didn't even say Metal Gear in the original 5 games.
Oh, they didn't? Okay.
No.
It was 5 games, but it was a couple of good stuff, and now they released the full list. I guess for the sake of the podcast, we can kind of go over what they mentioned. So some of the games that they mentioned is
let's go over. Let's go over every game real quick. How about it?
Okay.
We don't have to talk very long on each game, but we can just kind of, half of these games I know we haven't played, maybe all of them, so we don't have to go too deep into them. But let's just go right now.
I'll preface this saying this: I didn't grow up with a PlayStation, but I know you did.
Oh man!
So, I would love to hear.
Oh God! I thought you had a PlayStation growing up at some point.
Never? I had a choice between the PlayStation
and N64.
And N64, and I was a Nintendo diehard.
All right.
So I said Nintendo. I did play PlayStation games as I got,
on. Yeah.
I got a PS2 and everything.
Okay, so I had PlayStation from jump, right when it 1996 or whatever. I had it pretty early on. We couldn't even figure out how to hook it up correctly because it wasn't like the screw into the back. Those. It was. No one, we had to do it through the VCR, no one knew what to do when we first got these systems.
Let me tell you something. For these kids now, if anybody's listening to this and they're, a teen or whatever, those red, yellow, and white cords were the HD of our time. So
they were, they were not easy. Most regular TVs either didn't have it, so you had to go through your VCR or something. It was there was so many weird ways. It was just the worst. But once you got it working, you were let's play some games. Alright, so, I got the full list here in order.
You're looking at, you have the main website, right?
I'm just on some website. I got the list though.
Okay. Alright, so it's probably alphabetical order, so we can go through that.
In general, before we get into this, I'll just say in general, this is one of to me, the worst lineups you could ever get for the system. I think it's awful. Not the worst lineup. Let me not say that. It's just not a very good one. There's some great games in here, and a lot of them aren't. There's a weird trend going on, which we'll go on to discuss. So, first game is Battle Arena Toshinden. Do you know anything about it?
I might have played a little bit of it, but I do know some things about it. It was a 3D fighting game with weapons.
Yeah.
And I know the reception is that it didn't play really well. But, it is one of the first games for...
Yeah, it was definitely, I think, a launch game. So, I had it. I rented it from Blockbusters back in the day, when that was a thing. And, it was fun. It had its two characters that one looked like Ryu and one kind of like Ken, They had...
Fighting game staples.
Yeah, so it had weapons, but you really had moves too, like Fireball, Shoryuken kind of moves. You had that. It was fun at the time. I've looked at it recently. It probably doesn't hold up so well now. So, but I can see it being a kind of fun to jump in and mess around. But I feel like it's one of those games you'll play once on this collection, and then you probably won't pick it up again. It's not, especially when there's a much, much better fighting game down the list. So that's Battle Arena Toshinden. I think they could have subbed it out for a better game.
Definitely.
Maybe even Soul, what's the first Soul game?
Soul Edge?
Soul Edge, yeah. PlayStation had that. That was probably a better game, or maybe Dead or Alive or something more relevant.
Actually, I would have said they could have subs it for, Street Fighter Alpha 3. That came on the PS.
Right! That version of that's a very good version. I mean, the only problem is that the animations and stuff don't hold up very well. Like back then, no, you might have not known, but if you look at it now, the animations, like to save the memory and stuff, you know. But maybe but you're thinking, right, like maybe some sort of Street Fighter, even I would have took the EX series, which some people don't like, but I actually enjoy the EX series. Next is Cool Borders 2. What the fuck? I've played this. I rented this. And it's one of those games you don't remember. Like, I've played it, and I'm like, you know, oh, it was probably fun, but then like, okay. Is that really what people think of when PlayStation? And I can say, right now off the top of my head, licensing agreements aside, I can think of a better game. Right now.
I know.
Everybody can say. Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk 2. What were you talking about?
I said Jet Moto. I'm thinking, okay, Jet Moto.
Wow, but I agree with that too. But I was thinking more like extreme sports, right? Even though Jet Moto is kind of extreme, I guess. I don't know. But Tony Hawk, how do you not, Tony Hawk 2, which was one of the games that people, you know, associate with PlayStation. I mean, I know it came out on everything, but that doesn't make the fact that it, you know, it did come out on PlayStation. You know, even if you just want to go specifically Playstation, use the first Tony Hawk. I mean, you know. I know they have remakes and stuff, but that just seems weird.
Yeah. I never played, Cool Borders 2, but I definitely played Cool Borders 3. And like you said, it's an okay game. You know, I had fun when I was a kid, but definitely when I think of Cool Borders, no, I do think of PlayStation. It's just the only system I played it on.
Right.
I don't think of it as a whole. Like, it doesn't represent.
Yeah, this doesn't mean PlayStation to me. It's bad. And I know some of these collections have bad games, but this is like ridiculous. Alright, so next. So we already went through 2 games, which we would probably replace with better games. Alright, so third game, Destruction Derby. I've played it, cause I think it came with the demo of the PlayStation. I know there was a Destruction Derby 2, which I believe was much better than the first one. Mm-hmm. So this is part of that trend that I've said that's gonna kinda happen where there's better versions of the games on the same system, but they just release the first one. Mm-hmm. You know, and that has people thinking, oh, maybe they'll release another update or another PlayStation Classic or whatever. But this is just, like, this is another game where I could just say, I mean, it's not a destruction type game, but it is a racing game. Where is Gran Turismo? How is that not? I'm like, wait, how is Gran Turismo 1 and 2? Right.
They don't put it in there. I don't understand that. That's a huge omission, because I remember back in the day, I may not have grown up with PlayStation in my household,
but everybody knew that, right?
Yeah, I have friends who've had PlayStations, and I had a cousin who loved the hell out of Gran Turismo.
I didn't even like racing games. But I would play that just because it looked so good, and it was like, this was the game to play. I mean,
Gran Turismo is a flagship title that screams PlayStation. It's an exclusive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's an exclusive, and it belongs to Sony.
Right. You know. So it's very, very puzzling how that game is not on here. So, alright.
The next game.
So far we're 3 for 3 with games that shouldn't be on here. This
is going well.
So this next game is definitely a game that is going to be on here, and regardless of what people feel about it. Final Fantasy VII is. I'll say what the general consensus about it is nowadays from most people. It's not the best Final Fantasy. We all know that. It's probably not even the best Final Fantasy for PlayStation, but it is the most important Final Fantasy that was on PlayStation. It might be the most important Final Fantasy because it brought most people into like the cinematic type games. I mean, Final Fantasy, I remember playing it. I was in the 6th grade, and everybody I knew was playing it, was going through it. And no one had before this played these kind of games that much. I mean, like, no one played the previous not many people played Final Fantasy 6 or 3.
Big fan.
I did play Chrono Trigger and stuff, but this was like the first look, to me, this was like the first next gen RPG, like with the cinematics and it was just, it was way more important for what it did at the time. I replayed it a little bit on the Steam version, and it's obviously, it's very janky and kind of poorly translated, but it still kind of can grip you. Like, it's not, the story still kind of grips you in the beginning, and the characters, they're not, I like the characters. It's definitely not the best Final Fantasy on PlayStation. I think that's Final Fantasy IX, and some people might say like Final Fantasy Tactics. And some people might say Final Fantasy VIII, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But this game definitely had to be on here. Like, this was a guaranteed. You knew this game was going to be on here, and I think it deserved this place. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, I definitely played a little bit of Final Fantasy VII. Didn't finish it, but I played a good amount of it.
Right. I beat it like 3 times, so I know.
But it's definitely an important game, like you said, because it really turned the tide
in
terms of what people expect from RPGs and video games in general.
Right.
And also, it made Square Enix realize, or at the time Squaresoft, it made them realize how big of a market the American market was. Like, it was no longer just like some niche market. Where
right. It brought about the RPG boom. Basically, RPG started flying after this game, with a lot of silver-haired antagonists. There was a lot of Sephiroth looking. Well, a lot of the villains were like Sephiroth after that game came out. I can think of like Legend of Legaea's last boss was like that. Breath of Fire 4's last boss was silver-haired. I'm not, they just seem to have that trend. But this is a funny kind of omission too, actually, on Sony's end, because they have the rights to this game too, is not to put it instead, but Sony created a game just to rival Final Fantasy VII. It looked a lot like Final Fantasy VII, and it had 4 discs. It was epic. It's called Legend of Dragoon.
I heard about that.
I bought it. I didn't like it too much, but there are some people that really love the game. It's kind of a game I might like give a second shot at, maybe one of these days, but still, to me, for that being a Sony thing, that was definitely a Sony PlayStation game. Like, some people love it. And the fact that it's not on here is kind of funny too. Alright, let's move on to the next game.
Grand Theft Auto?
Yes, Grand Theft Auto. The first one.
I haven't played the first one. I probably played maybe one of the sequels.
Everybody's played one of the sequels.
Yeah, I mean, not
you mean Grand Theft Auto 2?
Like the Grand Theft Auto 2, yeah.
Or London, or whatever one they made.
Yeah, something like that. I probably played that a long time ago, barely remember. But it's an important game. I really feel Grand Theft Auto, as we all know, didn't really get a stride until the PlayStation 2 era.
Until 3 came out.
Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, and that was really set Grand Theft Auto ablaze and changed the industry.
I personally think that this is kind of a cheap tactic to me, because it's putting that GTA name on it, and then most people, GTA didn't become a thing, like we said, until it was in 3D. I played very little of it, but the reason was because I didn't care for it. It does have those elements of getting in the car and running people over and kind of going crazy, but it's just not, it's overhead view, and it really makes it not as thrilling as it does in full 3D. And literally, this is so you can put on the box like GTA. Oh man, and this is gonna catch some people that didn't have the PlayStation or whatever, or they might want to see what it is. It's gonna definitely get them to bite it a little bit, but it's terrible. I think it's not. I think that this could have been another game. No, I'm not going to pick anything specific.
You know what game could have replaced it?
What?
Driver.
Yeah!
Should have been here. Driver.
Good choice, bro.
Been on that.
Because I love me some Driver. I love me some Driver.
Should have been in this game.
Except for that beginning training thing is stupid, but that's like the first game that's kind of locked behind a tutorial you have to beat. You don't even know how to, like, not that it took us forever, like everybody gets through it, but it's kind of like, you can't even drive the game until you get past that tutorial, which is, it's kind of tough. But no, Driver is definitely definitely should have been on it instead of Grand Theft Auto. Wait, see, I didn't even think of that. That was a great one. All right, let's move on to the next one. We're at 20. Okay, good. All right.
Intelligent Cube.
I've seen commercials for this game. I know it's a puzzle game where you're running around and has something to do with cubes, but that's all I know. I have nothing to say about it. I don't know if it was good or bad.
I heard it was good. I mean, the reception that I kind of glanced over, I heard it was good. But in terms of the impact of the PlayStation, I don't know.
It's definitely not one of the games I would consider. I don't know, but that's because I haven't played it. It might be one of those games that people are like, "Oh God, I love it," but I've never played it, so I'm not gonna. It's to the point where I can't even say it shouldn't be on here. I can still think of games I would rather put, but I just don't know anything about it.
I think we'll put a pass on this one because
that's
I've played it. We don't really know much about it.
Maybe if I ever get this classic, which I'm not sure I will, and I play it, then I can decide. But at this point, I'm not.
But here's the thing, though. Even if you haven't played it, at least you would know if it had an impact or not.
I don't know anybody who has played it either. So yeah, I mean, I have never heard anybody talk about.
Like Sony's like, hey, we have this game. Let's put it in there. Give it a puzzle game.
It just seems like a very weird game to put on. I mean, you have so much other options.
They probably had 19 games, and they were probably like, you know what, we needed to make it even 20.
No, that can't be the reason. Somebody likes this game a lot and just pushed it on there, I guess. Alright, let's move to the next one. Jumping Flash.
Another game I've heard of. I don't really know much about it.
Alright.
From what I've heard, people enjoy it. But I think maybe you played it, right?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite games when I got the PlayStation. I rented it, of course. And I rented it and its sequel, Jumping Flash 2. I don't remember which one's better. They're very similar. Maybe Jumping Flash 2 is probably better. In this generation, the sequels to games were a lot better than the originals a lot of the time. Because developers finally got a chance to use the system and stuff like that. They knew better, whatever. It's a first person shooter that has you in this robotic rabbit that can jump really high. So I think it definitely is a nostalgic selection that, you're gonna get some of these. It was one of the original, launch games. It wasn't 3D, so it was one of the first 3D experiences I ever played. I don't know if it's really good or bad. I just know it's kind of there. But I think it does belong on this, because it does, to me, scream PlayStation. So that's
your question. When did the game come out?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I think it's a launch game. If it's not, it was very close to launch. The graphics definitely won't hold up and stuff, but obviously that's kind of the issue with this whole thing. Let me see. Jumping Flash came out in 1995. So
okay,
yes, yeah. So pretty much a launch game. Yeah. So I'm not gonna disparage it. You kind of need some of these games on there. I think that's one of them that gets a pass from me. I don't think it needs to be replaced or whatever. Maybe the sequel should have been here instead. I think it might be better. I just can't remember because I haven't played those games in 20 years. So, next game is the big one. We don't have to spend much time on this one because we all know it deserves to be here.
Yeah, no.
Metal Gear Solid, 100%. This game's gonna be on here. It's, it changed gaming. It made games kind of seem to be able to tell very realistic stories with huge production values, voice acting, and all, it just did so much. Metal Gear was just, everybody I knew played Metal Gear and associated Metal Gear with being a PlayStation classic.
And it really emphasized stealth and games, and then right after that, a lot of games started doing
stealth, yeah.
Siphon filter.
So we can blame it for putting bad stealth sections in games probably or something. I don't know.
Oh, definitely. But the game it's revolutionized gaming and it really changed the landscape. So there's not much to say about it. It's important. I didn't play the PlayStation one,
right?
But I did play the Twin Snakes version, which I know people kind of
don't
cutscenes.
You can't. There's two reasons you can't bring that. Only it's not because it's just the cutscenes, but that game uses the Metal Gear Solid 2 engine, so the first person shooting was not a thing, which changes the difficulty of the game and it kind of changes the whole game. Also, you have full life. You have like this full health bar. In the original Metal Gear, your health bar was really small at the beginning, and every boss you defeated gave you more health.
Would increase it.
Yeah, so it was different. I played the Twin Snakes version too. I like both of them, but definitely the original I think is better, in terms, especially the voice acting. They redid all the voices for Twin Snakes. The original I think is a little more authentic. It's kind of hard to explain.
Actually, what's funny, the first memory I have of Metal Gear was when, I went to this video game store that used to be in the Coliseum, and I remember seeing the Kodak scene, and I was just so amazed with like how, it wasn't animated, but how well it looked. Like it looked like something really serious, and
right.
It was really dope. Like I didn't really know what it was at the time until many years later, or a year or two later. But it was really awesome.
And yeah, and a quick note too is just how awesome that game breaks the fourth wall. I'm not even going to talk about the boss battle, but one of the things you had to do was call Meryl in the game, and the only way to call her was to look her codec. The game would tell you is on back of the game box that you bought. So that was the only, and literally there it is. Like they show it so like you had to actually look at that. This is before the internet and stuff. So, without that, you wouldn't have been able to call her. I don't know if they eventually just give it to you, but that was kind of like, that was just a little hint at the craziness of Kojima. But anyway,
that's awesome. All right.
Next game, Mr. Driller.
Never played it.
I've played it. It's a puzzle game again, so I wasn't a big puzzle game player if it wasn't Tetris. I can't really comment on it or a game that should replace it. I remember it being on a Dreamcast and stuff. But from what I heard, people really like it's a good game. So, is there something I would replace it with? Of course, but you need your puzzle games, maybe not three of them.
I don't want to spoil the list, but yeah, definitely like you said, three of them. I think they're
three of them. I think there's enough puzzle games, right?
I think maybe one or two. I would say maybe one.
I think two. Puzzle games.
Well, we'll get to the final one and we'll talk about that.
Next game. Right, Our World, Abe's Odyssey.
I've heard good things about the game. I don't think I've played it.
Okay.
But I do know it was kind of revolutionary for its graphics, and as well as the animation.
Yeah. So I played it. Never beat it, but I played it. It's an adventure game. Very unique, very creative. It's 2D. It's similar to these older games. It has a similar style to these games like Flashback. I don't know if you ever played that. But there's these games that have, like, the characters have these really smooth, they have these animations,
like Prince of Persia.
Yeah, exactly, like that. So, it's very much in that style where if you hit the triangle, jump button, you're gonna jump a certain distance forward all the time, so, and...
It's gonna complete the whole animation.
Right. So, this game was more about rescuing, your Madokan brothers or whatever, and you're like a slave working at this thing and you have to like free yourself. And it had some pretty cool puzzles. It had this ability where you can mind control the enemies and do stuff with them. And it also had this talking thing where you had to talk to your fellow Madokans, that's what you're called or whatever, to guide them to safety. Like you can tell them to stop, follow you, wait here. You can hit them around and stuff like that. I think the sequel's better. It definitely had more in it. I don't know if it was much better, but this one, they were pretty similar. So I think either this one or or Abe's Exodus you could keep, but this is definitely worthy of a spot here. So there's nothing bad about that. Next game.
Okay. Rayman.
Have you played the original Rayman?
I have played the original Rayman, probably not on the PlayStation, but I have played it. Yeah, I think it's definitely important.
Where'd you play it?
Didn't they release it on the Game Boy Advance?
Okay, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. I played a little bit of that.
Not that the Game Boy Advance version is actually pretty, but this is one of the games. Rayman is a very good inclusion on this package because instead of its sequel, which is still a great game, Rayman 2 is very good, but Rayman 2 is in 3D, wouldn't look so good. This is the original 2D, very pretty, bright colors. It looks great. And, you know, it's definitely, I think, a game worthy of inclusion. Rayman's ridiculously hard. It is very difficult 2D platformer, but, I think it's very, very good choice from them. You know, it was one of the, has animated scenes and stuff like that, and, you know, music's pretty good. It's great. It's just that it's difficult. You know, it's one of those games where you will restart a lot of the time, just because you have to make sure you save every life and stuff like that. You have limited continues, and you have to get everything to get the real ending, so.
Looking at the list, let me just double check one more time. I would include one more other platformer. I would still keep Rayman, but keep another platformer, and that would be Tomba.
Oh, right. I've never played those, and I've heard great things about Tomba and Tomba 2.
Yeah. And I would have had that. I don't know why they were able to get it.
They just didn't put it on. To me, it's like Gran Turismo. There's games that they're selling on the PlayStation Store that they could probably say, okay, we'll license. You know, they just didn't do it for whatever reason. All right, next, let's move up. Let's try to move a little bit quicker. Let's see.
Resident Evil. That's Resident Evil Director's Cut.
You can see why it's on there. It's original. I think Resident Evil 2 would have been much better, especially with the coming remake coming out. I think it would have been good to see the classic, but you know, whatever. You know,
it's good to have part one.
It's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Next game, Revelations Persona. This is again similar to Grand Theft Auto, where Persona really didn't pick up until 3, 4, and 5. Where and I'm not saying the originals aren't good because they're decent. I've played a little bit. I just don't think that they obviously didn't. People don't talk about the original Personas for, you know, because they just didn't, you know, set the world on fire like the new ones did. And I think they're just doing that to say, oh, Persona's on this. You know, Persona, the games that, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, this is just one that.
Yeah.
The Grand Theft Auto thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very similar to that. So, you know, that could have been replaced with a myriad of RPGs. I mean, if I had to throw one out.
What RPG would you replace it with?
Suikoden 2, easily. Probably one of the best RPGs on PlayStation. There's still a lot of things. Like Alundra is a really good game that, you know, is a really good Zelda type game that I think could have been on it. That might have been more of a licensing thing, but once again, they're still selling it on, you know, PlayStation Network. But I think that's a game. Alundra's, the way it is timeless. The graphics are 2D, so it's not, you know, it doesn't look bad. So, you know, anyway, Ridge Racer Type 4.
I haven't played that, but, you know, I think there was a time when every console generation ushered a new Ridge Racer.
It was usually PlayStation, yeah. Well, PlayStation, yeah. I mean, every PlayStation game has a Ridge Racer game on launch, I think, or just about. Ridge Racer 4 is the best of the Ridge Racers, by far. It's actually really good. I remember playing it a lot. The original Ridge Racer had like 2 tracks, but it was just a launch game, so you didn't care or whatever. It was 3D, it was cool. Ridge Racer 4 has much more tracks. The graphics are really nice. It plays really good.
You see how they got one of the best I don't know if it's
the
best versions on
it is the best version of the game.
They got the best version for that, but not for the other games.
Yeah, there's a lot of other games where, that's what was kind of crazy. So, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's how I feel about it. I've played a little bit of it. You know, it's alright. I'm not, you know, crazy for it.
Right.
But, you know, again, this is the third puzzle game. So I definitely would have cut out Mr. Driller, and I just kept Intelligent Cube and Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo as is.
We're only keeping Intelligence Cube because we don't know about it.
Huh?
So we're only keeping IQ because we don't know if it's good or bad.
Exactly. And then on top of that too, again, it goes kind of to what I was saying before. You know, definitely Street Fighter Alpha 3 should have been on here. If there's only one if there's only one Street Fighter game that had to be here,
right,
it had to be Street Fighter Alpha series. You know, so this game, I don't think it's kind of, again, I think maybe it's the same thing, like maybe like Revelations Persona and Death Auto, where they just wanted like a game out there.
I'll say, I'll say that I know I enjoy Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. People really like that game. So it's one of the games where I hear people talk about, actually. Now, I don't know if it's PlayStation specific, because I know there's other versions. But it is a game that people do fondly remember. I remember in high school, kids were playing it like crazy. I went away to boarding school, but some kids had it on their computer, emulated, and they played it all the time. So, I mean, you know, I didn't enjoy it as much, because I don't really like puzzle games that much, so, but, you know, that ain't for me. Alright, let's get to the next game. Siphon Filter.
So, like we were saying before, Metal Gear Solid brought about a wave of
these
a lot of clones, and these people who want to do like this cool spy kind of, you know, thriller thing, or like something similar to Metal Gear, and definitely Siphon Filter is one of them.
Have you played the original?
I might have played a little bit of it at some point. Can't remember much of it. But
well,
I don't remember. So my memory of Siphon Filter is very hazy.
I remember.
Have you played it?
Yeah. Well, I haven't played the full game, so I know like there's 3 Siphon Filters on PlayStation. I don't know which one's the best. I know the original had a demo that, you know, PlayStation has so many demo discs, and so you get a taste of every game almost. So I played the demo maybe 1,000,000 times. It was enjoyable. It was enjoyable shooter, kind of running around, third person shooter. I think it was a train level. But it wasn't enough that I said I want to buy this game. You know what I mean? So, I really just kind of didn't care for it. I will tell you one thing. It is a PlayStation game. It's one of those classics, I think.
I believe that's
the weirdest thing about Siphon Filter is the guy's run animation. It just looks weird. That is the one thing I remember from that game. His legs, I don't know if it just looked like his legs were detached from his upper body, so they just moved in a weird way that didn't look natural. But that's about my memory of Siphon Filter. But I would say it should be on here. Like, why not?
All right.
Next game. Tekken 3.
This game definitely deserves to be on this list. Again, as I said before earlier, I didn't grow up with a PlayStation,
right?
But I had a lot of relatives who did have PlayStation, and one of the games we played a lot
was Tekken 3.
So I do have a very nostalgic core for Tekken 3, and I love the hell out of that game. Like it was, you know, we were kids back then, so we weren't, we didn't know much about the moves or whatever like that, but we had a blast playing it. The game looked great. It looked incredible for its time. Had a lot of different options in terms of like, you had the volleyball game. I think you had the beat 'em up section 2 in that game, if I remember correctly.
So, yeah, Tekken 3 was amazing. It had a lot of interesting secret characters. It looked, like you said, it looked great. I think it ran at 60, maybe not 60 frames, but it might have. But
some of the stuff the game was doing,
it looked
really
fantastic. It had great music. Every character had like a specific 3D animated ending. Like you said, it had Tekken Force mode, which was like this 2D, this beat 'em up Tekken mode. Force. Like,
the game gave you everything.
I don't know if you could use,
that's one of the games that you got, and you felt like it gave you everything in the kitchen sink.
It was weird. Because I had a choice to buy Street Fighter Alpha or Tekken 3, and I bought Street Fighter Alpha, and it played it a lot and stuff, but then when I got Tekken 3 later on, we just couldn't put Tekken 3 down. I mean, the Tekken Ball mode, like you said, which was like, it was just, there was so much content in that game. It was amazing. It's like, hands down, this is the game that even they apparently knew that they couldn't put Tekken 1 or 2 on this. Like, I'm surprised they didn't put Tekken 1. Like,
but definitely this game is worth being, this game has earned its place.
And I think you would, and I think it still plays great. Like, I recently just played Tekken 3, cause it was at like a laundromat somewhere for some reason. And it still plays great. I mean, it still doesn't look bad or anything. It was an arcade version, but this is much better than the arcade version. So, Tekken 3, fantastic. Next game.
Thumbs up. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six.
So I didn't play that game as a kid. I watched someone play it when I was away at camp. One of the counselors had it, and it looked very bad. It looked awful. It didn't look good at all. And I remember reading a review for it. I don't know if it was EGM or it was, but I remember it getting pretty bad reviews because the first person shooter controls just didn't work on the original PlayStation very well. And it was still kind of tactical. It was just not good. And this again is having the name of something. You know, it's like Grand Theft Auto again. Let's just put the original Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six because people like Siege and the new game out in Vegas. Oh yeah, they'll remember that. So let's just throw this version on there. I think it's complete utter garbage. I don't even think of a game to replace it. Like you can replace it with anything. I'll
tell you this. I didn't play Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six for PlayStation, and when I hear PlayStation, I don't really think of Rainbow Six. But that's just me. I don't know.
No. I don't care what anybody. I don't care if anybody want to argue this shit. The game should not be on there.
A game I would replace it with is Tomb Raider.
I think. No, I just think like at the end of this, we'll just get to some just bizarre omissions like that because that's a bizarre omission. You know, I don't understand why any of the Tomb Raiders.
If you want some shooting. You know, I know you got your games already, but if you want some shooting, you know, even though Tomb Raider is more about its exploration and kind of adventure,
it just should be on here. Everybody knows the original
Tomb Raider. That's like, all right. So let's get to the next one. I think this one definitely deserves to be on the PlayStation Classic. Twisted Metal. I mean,
I disagree, 100%.
Disagree?
Yep.
Why? Okay, why do you disagree?
Because this is similar to the other games. Twisted Metal is okay. Yeah. Twisted Metal is an okay game. But Twisted Metal 2, and some people like 3, I don't like 3, I thought 4 was okay. But Twisted Metal 2 is 100%, million times better game. Like, Twisted Metal was okay. Twisted Metal 2 was like classic. Like, we used to play Twisted Metal 2 all the time. I had both games. Twisted Metal 1 wasn't a game like I played until Twisted Metal 2 came out. But when Twisted Metal 2 came out, oh my god, we play this game all the time. So many one-on-ones and just going through the story mode and everything. And I just said, like, why is the original like, you made the correct choice with Tekken 3. How did you miss this? There's nobody that would say the original Twisted Metal is better than Twisted Metal 2. I mean, for Christ's sake, you can unlock, like, 3 of the Twisted Metal 2 original stages in Twisted Metal 2. Like, so, like, just put Twisted Metal 2 in there. Like, oh my god, that one, I just seen that and I said, like, is unbelievable.
Yeah, that I agree with you on. I played part 1 and part 2, but I definitely know a lot of people regard part 2 as
it's not even close, bro. It's just, like, Twisted Metal 1 is definitely like an earlier game, like, the character portraits are like of real people and stuff like that. It's like, it's very wonky, you know. I remember the game being pretty flat overall, you know, like Twisted Metal 2 took you all over the world, had much more interesting stages and secrets, like, it was just so much better that this game, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked, but, you know, it is what it is. Let's finish up with the games. Yeah, so, Wild Arms.
This is more your territory. So.
Yeah, I figured. I don't know if I consider this it is a PlayStation specific classic game. And I think a lot of people do think of it as you know, it did come out before Final Fantasy VII, so, and I played it, I bought it, I beat it. I enjoyed it. It had one of the best anime, openings with, just this like Western whistling thing going on. But it's a typical RPG. It has some cool puzzle elements. I think it's worthy of being on here. It's definitely better than Wild Arms 2. Wild Arms 2 is a little weird. But it seems like it's okay, you know.
Alright. So let's get to the omissions.
Alright, so
you already mentioned Tomb Raider. What else did we mention? Driver.
Right.
And I think we mentioned one more. Gran Turismo.
Yeah. So those are like the glaringly stupid omissions, like that they just don't. Whoever made this list just doesn't understand life. I don't care. They just don't get it.
So off the top of my head, I have a couple more that we can probably discuss, and you can, of course, chime in with anything you come up with.
All right, we're at 45 minutes, by the way, right now. So,
So all right, so we're missing Spyro,
right?
Crash Bandicoot,
Right. Castlevania.
Spyro, Crash Bandicoot.
Castlevania.
Oh yes, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Oh my God, you kidding me? You don't have that? Like, to me, that is, oh my God, that is such
that. And I'll tell you, the only reason I don't think that game is on here is because of the collection that just came out. I think that's the reason why a lot of those games aren't on here. Now, and I'm wondering if they just told Sony, like, nah, since we're releasing these games. But to me, it's like, those games are different. Well, not the Castlevania one, because that's literally the same game with just a new translation. But the Spyro and the Crash Bandicoot games that are remade, they're not the same. I mean, they're better looking. They might have new things. But there's, the point of the PlayStation Classic is playing these games as they were. The perfect, like their original perfect way. And I think it's a shame that if the remakes are the reason that a few of these games aren't on there, then that's a big shame. Like I said, there's an omission of lots of RPGs, of course. I could go on for days. I think the Breath of Fire series is completely missing, and Breath of Fire 3, I know a lot of people really enjoy 3 and 4. Plus they were PlayStation exclusives. I mean, one of the first PSP games that people was Breath of Fire 3 that people, when they announced the PSP and stuff. Like I said, Suikoden 2, the Suikoden series 1 and 2, neither one of those, any one of those could have been on here instead of some of this garbage. Any other omissions? There's a lot of games obviously omitted. Like there's some games that I've seen people make lists of games like I would like to have tried, like Einhander, which was this shooter on this Square Enix shooter that they made. It was really interesting and really hard to find. Or Vagrant Story. Was it Vagrant Story? Yeah, that was supposed to be a really interesting type game that I've tried it a little bit, but I think I was too young to kind of grasp how to really get into it. There's no tactical games.
Missing?
What?
And I know this game is missing. I know it might be a little bit more difficult to have it play on modern TVs, but Parappa the Rapper,
see, I think, and yeah, I agree that, or to me, Jammer Lammy maybe, because at least Parappa the Rapper, I could see them saying, well, there's this remade version if you want that, because they did remake it they did do the HD version. I know. That's why I said at least have Jammer Lammy. I mean, but then you know what? You know why this is partially? You know why that remake idea is bullshit? Because Oddworld has a remake. Oddworld Abe's Odyssey is remade, and you can play it on your PS3 and PS4 right now, like the remade version. So we could just say they just didn't include some of these games, and I don't think Parappa the Rapper is a licensing thing. They just didn't include that. They just didn't include that shit because, it's a short game. It's very simple, but it is very important. I just don't get it.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Do you think Sony has something up its sleeve? So they're releasing this PlayStation Classic with the games that we mentioned for $100. Personally, I don't think it's worth $100 because a lot of it is kind of, even though they're I guess decent games in their own right, a lot of it's just bloating the lineup. And
oh man, I just looked up a list of some games that we didn't mention real quick. Mm-hmm. I know it's because of the way they released it with the original PlayStation controller, but fucking Ape Escape, Ape Escape is so good.
Like you mentioned, the controller.
They didn't go with the DualShock one for some dumb reason, but I get the authenticity and maybe it keep costs down, but Ape Escape is one of the best 3D platforming games on the PlayStation. real quick, another game that they didn't put on, like we said, Tony Hawk. Chrono Cross, which is one of the best RPGs on the system.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
They didn't do that. And another Konami game that they didn't, Silent Hill. Now, Silent Hill, to me, is very PlayStation. You know, even the fog that the PlayStation 3D games have is used as a mechanic in the game. I mean, so. Alright, so I think we got all the games that should be on there out of the way. So you said, do you think they have something up their sleeves?
Yes, because personally, I think they may be releasing another version of it. So they're kind of doing what Nintendo maybe hasn't done yet, or maybe might not do.
Like release?
So they might release a second version of it. Like maybe the PlayStation Classic DualShock 2 or...
Right.
Whatever version. They may be releasing down the line. So...
Oh man, I forgot about Wipeout and Klonoa. So many better games out there. So,
got a lot of games.
So much better games to put on this list. So, do I think, I don't know. I think Sony's getting ahead of themselves again. And this is what happens when they start winning. Like, it's kind of hands down that they beat Xbox this generation, right? Like, we could kind of say they did. So, similar to like in the PS2 era, they start getting kind of this cockiness, like when they went on to announce the PS3, yeah, this is $600, and yeah, you'll buy it because you like PlayStation, and people didn't. You know what I mean? And so they learned their lesson coming in the PS4 saying, okay, we're gonna make it cheaper, and we're gonna make it play games and do the regular stuff. Everything you want, and we're gonna have great exclusives. And now that to me, it's, now that they're on top, remember the whole Fortnite debacle where they wouldn't let people play with certain other, like Xbox, and Xbox is like, we'll do anything now because they're sucking now, you know what I mean? So they'll do anything. So I think Sony with this is like, first of all, $100? No.
$100 is way too much.
Yeah.
A good price point, I would say maybe 70 max. 70 max.
I think they should charge what Nintendo charges for the Super one. So if Nintendo charge $80 for that, I think they could charge $80. But this game list definitely isn't worth, if it had much better games, and even with all collections, you're gonna have a stinker or two on there. Like there's just,
that's a
lot
of stinkers.
But there's a lot of stinkers on this thing.
You can use that version.
PlayStation.
I really feel like
the original PlayStation is one of my favorite systems, and I'm not even gonna buy this thing. That's how bad this collection is. I'm not gonna even buy it. I'm just not. $100 isn't the reason. It's just what's on there is literally nothing. There are classics, but it's just not enough to justify having the thing. Even if it was like $50, yeah, then I'd probably do it, even with the selection of games. But at this point, no way. So I think it's bad. I think they dropped the ball. They really did. But I feel like they don't care because I feel like they could have made it much better, and they just didn't. Mm-hmm. Like some of the choices are very glaringly. Now, like you said, will they release a second one with a DualShock or, maybe, they might let this bunch sell out and then have like a next gen one, like maybe it'll look like the PlayStation 1, the white one, the small, maybe they'll release that with a DualShock and then they can still throw 20 new games on there and it'll be better. You know what I mean? That's how much good games are on. So.
I heard a theory online that this was pretty much a last minute, collection put together. So there's possibly a lot of licensing deals.
Right.
Was it?
Yeah. They probably rushed it. You're right. They probably rushed it. I think that's probably why they only announced 5 games, because they probably really didn't have the other 15 games ready to go. And so they said, well, let's see what 15 games we can get easily. Still, some of those choices, like Twisted Metal 2, like you couldn't get that, or Gran Turismo, you can so there's some confusion. No, we won't know, but I think
But I think I feel confident that if this does well, because it's a possibility that this might be a big stinker.
I think it's not going to do well. I hope it doesn't do well, because it's not. A lot of people looking around, kind of like, nah, no. Why? There's no point. I have not heard anybody. I've not heard anybody really down to get this like they were when the Nintendo. Like people are not going to line up when this comes out like they were, and it's going to sell out.
Oh yeah,
the way the Nintendo one did.
If they had the right games, I think they could have had a real winner.
Oh my god, I would be day one.
And that price for this collection, I gotta give this an easy pass.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I gotta give it a thumbs down.
$20 cheaper, much better games would have been instant sell for me. Much better games at $100, I'd still buy it. But the game collection, I mean, literally, there's probably 5 games on there that's worth playing.
Exactly.
So, anyway, let's move on to that other nugget of news. We're at 55 minutes, by the way.
All right. Keep going. All right. Let me see. All right. So, according to Kotaku, Reggie Fils-Aimé, said
was asked about the N60, the possibility of an N64 classic.
So he said, paraphrasing, he said, I guess the writer, let me just get his name to kind of give him a shout out. Stephen Totillo. I say it right?
I don't know.
Totillo. Okay. So Stephen Totillo asked, would you roll out an N64 classic coming? And Reggie Fils-Aimé said, I would never ever rule something out. But what I can tell you is
they're definitely not working on it.
In our planning horizon. So now that's kind of disappointing, especially if you were, especially after coming from the NES Classic, SNES Classic. My take on it, and here's what I gotta say. I think one of the reasons why N64 Classic may not come out, besides some of the practical stuff that we'll probably get into a little bit later on, is some of their best games was created by Rare, who are now signed to Microsoft. So I believe, let me see, Nintendo would probably have to try to license some of those games again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe aside from Donkey Kong 64 is probably owned by Nintendo, but some of the games that probably would be on there can no longer be there.
Nobody wants your Jet Force Gemini.
Well, I was gonna say, if they did come out with one, it should be on that list.
Ugh.
But I don't know who owns that. I think maybe Rare owns that.
So,
but so go ahead. So actually, no. What I wanted to ask you was, what do you think about this? And if you could make a Nintendo 64 Classic, what are some of the games you would put on there?
All right. So, I think actually I read into the article. What Reggie stated is that part of the reason the NES Classic and SNES Classic came out was actually financially to bridge the gap between the Wii U, which wasn't doing too well, and the Switch. So now that the Switch is out, and the Nintendo Online thing is going there, they kind of see it being not, necessarily the best business decision to release it. Not that it wouldn't make money, because we know it would, but they just said like, we'll, if you want N64 games, we got you here, Now, and they got, it was a gap between those systems. I believe that's partial.
At the same time too, they didn't come up with, they haven't announced a virtual console for the
No, but you can play, but they are releasing classic games on there now, right? So, like, for instance, people, don't hold out for different kind of SNES classics and stuff because it's not coming, right? Like, so, I think they'll eventually graduate the Switch games up to, maybe not a virtual console, but whatever. They have some new whatever. I don't know how good Switch Online is yet because I heard not great things about it, but here's another thing I think. I actually honestly think that it would be expensive. I think the N64 Classic would be a little bit more expensive, primarily because the big thing about this is the authenticity of playing it. And one of the authenticities of playing with N64 are those big, gigantic controllers. And controllers aren't cheap. They're one of the most, so I think for them to reproduce those with those analog sticks, and then, if they throw, they gotta be careful which Mario Party game they're gonna put on there, cause people are gonna burn their hands again, So I think they're looking at all this, and like you said too, another thing is the licensing things. they can't have, they're not, GoldenEye is going to be tough to get on there, or they might not, you know what I mean? GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and a lot of Rareware games.
Yeah, those two games, which, like if you couldn't get GoldenEye 007, that's understandable. Licensing will be hell for that game. But then you can replace it with Perfect Dark, but now you can't even get Perfect Dark.
But and here's another thing though. Part of the N64's appeal, and I know there are kids out there that couch co-op, but that's a big thing, right? And part of the biggest appeal of N64 was it being 4 players. So, then are they going to release controllers, and then that's how many controllers they put in? I think there's a lot that goes into it. Connecting 4 controllers means connecting 4 ports, which makes the thing more expensive to produce. So, we're talking minimum, if they put that out, it'd probably be $100, which already, for you is kind of a limit. So, then another thing too is, like similar, the NES and SNES games age pretty good. These N64 games, a lot of them don't age as good. So Nintendo
first trying to get their hands on 3D
and just there's a very limited there's just the N64 was very limited in some of the stuff it could do, sound chip and stuff, because the sounds weren't created. They were like, you had to put the sound in the cartridges, like they weren't from the N64. You also didn't have the advantage of like CD memory and stuff. You couldn't have cutscenes, and the games had to be compressed if they were ported. So I just think that it was a lot of work that they're kind of like, we're fine with that. Like maybe in another few years, I see it coming. I just don't see it coming now. Now, what games would I put on there? N64 is weird because I think it's a little overrated, but I think because it has a lot of classics and great games, and I think Nintendo System's top, to put 20 games on is much easier because you just know you're gonna put a lot of Nintendo games on there. Of course. And N64 didn't have a lot of other, besides Rare and stuff. But to me, it didn't have so many.
It didn't have a lot of third parties.
Definitely had 3 RPGs I can think of. Mm-hmm. So I already didn't appreciate that.
With me growing up,
you had it.
Like I said, like I mentioned before,
I had it too. But go ahead.
I grew up the N64 in a way, and a lot of the games.
Wait,
some of them are rough.
Wait, so before we get to the games, let's make a little game out of it. You can't name a Nintendo game or a Rare game if you're gonna put it on there. It's because we know Fox, we know Star Fox, we know Super Mario, we know what's gonna be on there if they had to put it. So if you put some games on there, if they're an obscure Nintendo game that you think might, then okay. But for the most part, try to keep away from the Nintendo. What games would you put on your N64?
Alright, so if I had a chance to put a game on a Nintendo 64 classic list without naming the obvious first party and second party, number 1, it would be Resident Evil 2.
Okay.
Resident Evil 2, well, that was an accomplishment back in the day.
Right, because the fit
of that data in the cartridge.
Right.
And a lot of it was compressed. A lot of the cutscenes were compressed.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had it in the cartridge and the game was intact.
I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, it was definitely great choice. I would say, here's the thing, and this is a licensing issue, but if there's a possibility that they could work it out, I would say one of the WWF games, because Nintendo 64 was one of the best,
right?
One of the best wrestling games on the consoles in that generation.
I agree. Okay.
And, I had WCW and I had WCW versus NWO, I had Revenge, and later on I got WWF No Mercy, which I think was hailed as one of the best ones. Mm-hmm. And it really was some of the best wrestling mechanics and systems you can find on any console. So definitely, wrestling game could go there, but because of licensing issues, more than likely it'll never be on there. So unfortunately, we'd have to put an asterisk on that. Let me see what else. After that, let me see. What was Oh, that reminds me. Turok. No, I'm joking. Actually, you know what? Turok would be one of those games that you put on there. That would be like one of those games where it'd be like, it'll be fun to kind of try out when you get kind of tired of it. Because I would say Turok was alright because at the time it had some really good graphics. And it was, it was kind of I wouldn't say it's not open world, but the areas were very large. And, the graphics looked good. The shooting felt satisfying. I just felt like the game, was just, after you kind of get over the graphics and everything, it kind of gets kind of boring a little bit.
Right.
But, I think I'll probably put that in the game just as one of the throwaway games where it's like, okay, because it did really push the game, I don't know if it pushed the system to its limits, but it really did show off, some of this graphics capability. So I would say Turok because, I had enjoyment with that game. What else?
Are you running dry? You sound like you're running dry.
I'm not running dry. I just gotta remember some of these games.
I
look back at my collection.
They're not that memorable, huh?
Nah, I wouldn't say that. Let me see.
I already got like 3 or 4 games I can think of.
Let me see if I can remember anything.
This is live airtime.
Not a Nintendo game, right?
Right. Can't have Nintendo in it.
How about this? I don't think it was a launch title, but I think it came out in the same year.
Doesn't have to be launched. Okay.
Bomberman 64, I think. I played a little bit of that, back in the day. I think that was cool. It was alright. It was Bomberman. I don't know much about it, but I think it was definitely marquee 64 games.
Okay.
No Rare, no Nintendo.
Can I go?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure. Go ahead.
I know. Are you done? Or?
I'm thinking.
You see how quick we throw the PlayStation games and how hard it is to do that 64 games?
I mean, you know what it does? It does prove your point that PlayStation had a hell of a lot of third-party support.
Yeah, and then 64 really didn't.
64 was pretty much Nintendo.
And some other games. Now, let me get to some of these other games that I did play. A lot of these games, I liked them. I got 5 games for you. Maybe 6. You ready?
Go ahead.
Alright. Might be a licensing thing. Not sure. But the 2 Star Wars games, episode 1 Racer was really good. Yeah. Now, Shadows of the Empire is not really that good actually, but I think it was, and then that was one of the first games I had on N64, and it was definitely like, wow, this game's cool, and this thing, it was fun to play. It's probably really outdated with its bad controls, and it's probably not that great, but I think that would be like one of those throwaway games that you could definitely have. But if you had to include one, actually, let me say this. I'd take Racer and then Rogue Squadron. So I'd put those 2. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer and Rogue Squadron.
Oh, good.
Right. So
if I recall correctly, I don't think Rogue Squadron used the 64. You know how to increase the graphics using the, what do you call it?
Expansion pack?
Expansion pack.
Yeah.
I don't think Rogue Squadron used it.
No.
But
it didn't.
The graphics in that game looked incredible.
For the time.
For the time. Oh, of course, for the time.
Right.
But it was really great, and it felt good. I didn't really know at the time. I didn't know much about Star Wars because I didn't really watch Star Wars movies, but I still had a great time playing those games.
Right.
Star Wars had some good games back in the day.
Those are 2 games we can choose. Another game that's maybe I think it used to sell for a lot. I have a copy of it in my basement. Is Ogre Battle 64. It's this strategy game. It's a strategy game in the Ogre Battle series. I didn't get too far in it, but it looked pretty good. It looked pretty, it was the closest thing, probably best RPG on the system minus Paper Mario, I guess. But, so Ogre Battle 64. My next game is one of the first games I had for N64, which was Mischief Makers. Mischief Makers, which I don't know if you've ever played or heard of, but
I played of it, and I remember the game, and I remember initially not liking it.
Oh,
I had bought a secondhand copy,
right?
And I was playing it, and I was just like, oh man,
Well, you're
I like this
stupid
game.
because Mr. Makers is great. It was different because it wasn't just a standard. It was 2D, which was like maybe turned some people off in that era because everything was 3D at this time, starting to move to 3D, especially on N64. Yeah. It was 2D, and it was very different because you didn't have like a straight up an attack, like jumping on something. You had to grab things and shake them or throw them. But I think it was creatively used in some boss battles and certain levels and stages, and it was, it's made by the same people that made like Gunstar Heroes. It was Treasure. So they have a very specific kind of art style, and they to me appreciate gunplay similar to like, didn't they make Sin and Punishment? Was that them? Treasure?
I was just about to mention that.
That's probably be like another game we could throw in there, right?
But here's the thing. I mean, you can still throw it in there, but I know initially it wasn't released on the 64.
Neither was Star Fox 2, and they put that on the Nintendo one. So.
Well, of course.
So you can make, I think...
I wanted to preface that by saying that, and also saying that they did release it later on.
Right. So to me, there's no reason they wouldn't. Like, if they could. It'd just be a choice thing.
The game was pretty much already translated, so...
Right. So Mr. Makers, I would put on there. I think I have two more. This one's a little fun one for me. Snowboard Kids. I don't know if you ever played that.
Yeah. I've never heard of it. Never really had any interest in that.
I think Snowboard Kids was one of the fun racer games that we've played. I used to play with all my friends. Yeah, I know it had a sequel, which I didn't like so much, Snowboard Kids 2, but the original Snowboard Kids, I really enjoyed quite a bit. Last but not least, Mystical Ninja, starring Goemon. That game was really fun for me because I didn't know what I was getting into when I rented it, but I rented it. And it turned out to be, to me, it was not as high quality, nowhere near, but it was very Zelda-like. So you had this huge 3D world to explore, towns to go in, and dungeons and stuff. You had 4 playable characters that played differently that you had to switch in between to get things done. The graphics were nice at the time. It was very fun to play. It had these huge robot battles in it too. So, like, it was unexpectedly, back then you just had to pick a game based on its box art, right? Like you couldn't really guess how the game was, and that game was really good. So, so that's about all the games I got.
Some games I would add to that list as well are games I haven't played, but I really wanted to, but these games were so hard to find. So I have 2. There's one called Space Station Silicon Valley. It's actually made by the guys, Take-Two Interactive, DMA Design. I think, they became Rockstar after that. It's Rockstar's old name. So they made that game for the 64. And, I was trying to look for that game, but it became incredibly hard to find. From what I remember that game was you play like an alien or something, and then you can go into different animals to complete different missions depending on, which animal you use. It's a platformer. And it was, it's a game that I would love to play. And like I said, because it's hard to find, I think it would have a great place in N64 collection.
For some reason, I feel like that would have a 0 chance of getting on there. But I agree with you.
Oh yeah, licensing issues, of course.
Not even, I feel like but okay.
But another game, made by the guys Sucker Punch, responsible for like.
You gonna talk about that Blast Corps or something?
That's made by Rare. So you said no Rare games.
Oh, I didn't even know Rare made that.
Yeah. What is it called? Rocket Robot on Wheels.
Oh, okay, we're reaching here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those games.
Might as well throw Glover on there too, right? And all this other stuff.
Why not? I'm joking. I guess it's just kind of wishful thinking. To get finally play games that I didn't get a chance to play, and I think it'd probably make a nice, small,
all right,
collection. But
all
like
right.
you said before, a lot of these games are just more. If the collection were to exist, we know it would be. If it were to exist, and barring any licensing issues with Rare, it would definitely be Nintendo games, Rare games, and then a couple of easy third parties that they could get.
It's just so crazy how easily they could fill it up with just their own games.
Hey, they put in the work. I mean,
I mean, this.
We can be here all day just naming them all, but definitely Nintendo.
Yeah, that's why I figured it'd be quicker just to name non-Nintendo ones. All right. So are we good? Are we done?
Well, you have any final thoughts on the whole?
The PlayStation sucks. The PlayStation Classic sucks. That's my final thought. It's garbage. Don't buy it. Don't give Sony your money, because maybe they'll stop and release it with better games. Because some of it is inexcusable. Like you said, it does feel like a rush job. So don't be fooled. Don't get that shit.
To co-sign what you said, nay on PlayStation Classic, and in terms of not getting an N64 Classic, I understand. It makes sense, and I definitely feel like hopefully Nintendo will bring back the Virtual Console, which I think they will. They still want to announce it, make any promises, but I think one day they'll surprise everybody and say, "Here you go." So I think that's Nintendo's trump card to kind of always surprise their fans. But we'll definitely see these games, maybe not on a console by itself, but definitely within a Switch, which, has better controls and can at least, I guess, emulate some of the N64 controllers much better than having to recreate the N64 controller, which, I don't think they want to go through that to, make that a huge controller.
Right.
And then all the parts in it and everything. I think it's much easier to recreate something as simple as the NES controller, than something like the N64.
So, here's my parting note. Alright? You ready for this? You could go online and purchase a PlayStation 3 for about $80 on Amazon, a used one, and then just download a bunch of better games. You can download about 10 games and, it'd come up to like $110 with tax if you do that, and you'd have a better collection than the PlayStation Classic. So just
listen, don't say that out loud.
Just don't do it. Just
they're gonna when they release it. They're gonna snatch all the PS1 games out of it.
Yeah, just don't. Right, like half of those games are available, and the better games are available. Just don't do it if you don't have a PlayStation.
You're better off buying a PSP Go and downloading PS1 classics on that one.
Yeah,
and have it on the go.
You're right. There's just so many better options.
That's what they should have done. I'm pretty sure they have a stock of PSP Go out there that they want to get rid of. Well, it's probably long gone now, but if they did, they
holy hell,
the classics.
Wouldn't
that be smart?
The PSP Go is not cheap, bro.
Well, it's probably very not. It was genius. It was really cool because
it's about 100. The cheapest one is 130, but somebody is selling it for like $707 new. Like, get out of here. Buy a Vita at that point. Portables. You can still buy a Vita and get away with it. Probably
the Vitas are still like $200 though. So
they are.
Vitas, PSP, I guess because of
rest in peace, Vita.
Yeah.
I kind of want one, to be honest, but yeah.
I still want one too. I don't know why, but I'm very fascinated.
I see one for $100.
With hardware.
Yeah, I just kind of want it because I want a PlayStation. I still have a lot of PlayStation games I bought that I want to play. Anyway, all right, let's end this up, man.
All right, so the moral of the story is buy either a PSP Go or a PlayStation Vita. Download the games.
It's not the moral. The moral of the story is just stay away from that shit. Stay away from that classic. That's the moral of the story. All right. So,
yo. Well, this is the 8-bit generation. Thank you guys for listening. And again, signing off is Steve with my co-host Sterl.
And be sure to like us on Facebook and all those platforms and Twitter, blah 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 blah.
Oh, let's do the whole YouTube thing. Don't forget to like, subscribe.
All right, I'm cutting this short. Shut up. We're out of here.
Peace.